Welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Bruen, and a man who is making our dreams come true as far as our childhood goes and bringing it to life. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chris Fawcett. Thank you for welcoming me here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Pleasure to have you here, and we're going to talk about the coffee table book that you have brought to the world. It's an amazing piece. I picked it up myself this past week, and we'll touch all on that, of course. And, let's rewind back a little bit. Growing up as a kid, what are your first memories of toys?
Well, I'm the Star Wars generation kid. So my first memories, I was like 6, I think, when the original movie came out. So my first memories of toys are a few things before that. But really, when that movie hit, that was all I cared about at that point forward. It's like I didn't want birthdays, nothing else. Don't get me anything else. Just get me Star Wars toys. So that was really the thing for me.
Now, when it comes to the Turtles, TMNT, it took over the world. It took the world by storm. Why do you think that it blew up as big as it did? I mean, because I feel like it was grander than most toy lines at the time.
Yeah, so John Handy, which is one of the Playmates employees who was there at the very beginning, told me his idea on this, and I think he was spot on. He said basically that what the Turtles did is they took like the weakest thing almost you could think of, like a turtle is normally slow and doesn't do much, and sort of gave them the ability to be powerful, and especially to young boys, grade school, who maybe they didn't have a great home life, maybe they were getting picked on, maybe they were getting bullied, maybe a teacher wasn't too nice to them. This idea that even the sort of weakest animal could become something more powerful, more that couldn't be picked on or bullied. I think that was kind of the thing. And then the TV show kind of played into that a little bit too, right? They were the sort of the good guys that were sort of the outcasts, right? Like when you're in grade school, if you're in the outcast group, that tends to be the group that gets bullied too. So I think a lot of kids related to that really, really well. And so that's what probably was one of the biggest things to cause it to blow up, I think.
And it's a little different now, obviously, but back then, pretty much virtually almost every cartoon had its own toy line. If a new cartoon came out, you were going to see toys in some form or fashion. And Turtles for me was a big deal growing up as a kid, and I was all my friends were into it as well. And like you said, school age kids, people are bringing them into first grade and sneaking them in, and we're kind of checking out Splinter and some of the Turtles, and you'd get in trouble for that, and put them back in your bag and sneak them back out again later. But when it comes to the turtle characters themselves, there are so many unique characters, good and bad, on both sides of the realm. If you had to choose, who's your favorite turtle and who's your favorite oddball character?
A favorite turtle, I kind of split between Leo and Don. Leo because I like sort of his calmness and his leadership, and Don because I'm sort of a geeky tech. I was a geeky tech kid, I was probably the first kid in my class to get a computer at home and all that. So probably between those two, I'd probably lean a little Leo, only because my favorite color is blue. That'd be the deciding factor that flips me from one to the other. And then non-turtle. Well, it depends. Like, part of me wants to say Splinter, but that's not really a super oddball one. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'd have to go with Splinter. I was trying to think if there's any of those really wacky ones that I really like, but they're all great. Especially the mutant animal ones. But I would have to go with Splinter still, I think.
And let's talk about RAD Plastic. So, written by yourself, designed by Chance Sanderson, almost 400 pages. This is a top quality coffee table book, and it takes you through the entire plethora of all different options that we had as kids, including all of the rare stuff that some stuff maybe wasn't released, or some stuff was meant to come out and just didn't make the cut. But you've got all the variants and the prototypes and all that type of thing in there. How did this come about for you? What inspired you to put this out to the public?
Well, it was kind of an accident, honestly, the genesis of it. So I have had been, if you've ever watched the show American Pickers,
Yes.
where the guys go out and find stuff in garages and barns, I basically had been doing that for many, many years, with toy lines, and not really with turtles, but more Star Wars, but in Kenner, sort of that company's toy lines. So I would, really try to go after the employees or contractors that work there, and try to find interesting things that they may have taken home and kept. And, the infamous rocket firing Boba Fett, I found a few of those back in the day. Um, and so I had one person that I contacted, probably, I don't know what year it would have been, but maybe 2002 to 2001, somewhere in there. And went to her house and looked at some stuff, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm not really ready to sell anything." Didn't really look at much. Just she played me some interesting videos she had of, like, the from the factories in China from the 70s. It was pretty cool. We looked at a few things, but we went down to her basement, and, like, the entire thing was, like, lined with boxes. So I'm like, "Oh." Anyway, fast forward more than 20 years, and I had just kept in touch and pinged her here and there. Hey, any thought to what you want to do with all that stuff? And then it was pure luck, I think, that because she wasn't on social media very much, and every once in a while I'd see something pop up, and that would sort of clue me, oh yeah, I need to send her a little note. And one time that happened, and this was 2017 or so. So this has been somebody I had been talking to for 15, 16, 17 years now, right? So this is how long some of these things take to come to fruition. And she said, "Yeah, I'm ready." You know, uh, she had a daughter going off to college and wanted to be able to help her with that. So me and my three other partners, which I'll give a shout out to: Matt George, Stephen Ward, and Gary Borbage, who also wrote a great book about the engineering team from Kenner on the Star Wars toys. I think it's out of print now. They just sold out of it, but maybe you could find one used somewhere. It's called Engineering and Empire. So we went there to her place, and uh, she had worked at Kenner, and so, and then also I think Tycho maybe. So what I was expecting is maybe some cool, Kenner stuff, some Star Wars things or superpowers or whatever.
Sure.
And we start opening some boxes, and maybe 20 minutes in, uh, one of the very first things I found was the original sculpting, wax sculpting for the creature Leo. And we're like, why is this here? Turns out that she had a relative that worked at Playmates, so she never worked there. But all this stuff ended up in her house, and ended up. I won't go into the story of what happened, but basically she now had acquired all this stuff.
Wow.
So that got me really excited, right? I mean, that was probably the first really good thing we pulled out. Like before that, we're like, oh, toy ponies. Oh, a box full of scarves. Like, here's
Yeah.
some NASCAR stuff. Like, it was like, okay, is there anything good here? And then we're like, oh my god, like, what's this? And I don't remember if we asked her, like, where did this come from, or if we just kept digging. But anyway, um, we kept going through all these boxes, and there were some were pulled out, like a bin, like, those Rubbermaid bins that are whatever, 3 foot, 4 foot long, and 2 foot wide, and 3 foot deep. Um, and opened one of those up, and it was just packed to the top with painted hard copies, the various lines. And
Wow.
I didn't honestly know the line that well at the time. I was a Turtles fan. I had watched. That was out when I was in early college, and so honestly, and I loved like a lot of the cartoons then, like the Darkwing Duck was about that same time. And so I would come home from my college at 2:30 or 3 o'clock done for the day and be ready to work on homework. And I would turn those on. It was that time of day, right? So I would turn Darkwing Duck and Ninja Turtles and I'd do my homework. And then we had the video game in the student center too. So I played that a lot, the 4-player. So that's kind of my tie into that. I wasn't really of age to be into the toys at the time. But just being a general collector and the Star Wars stuff, I realized the importance of this stuff was found. So at that point in time, I'm like, the other thing that happened was we found a thin binder that was basically a listing of all the subcontractors that they worked with. And so Playmates was a little bit of an interesting company because unlike Kenner, Hasbro, Mattel, they were not based in the United States. They only had a small marketing and sales team here. All their engineering team, quality, all of that was in Hong Kong because that's where the company was based. So they had set up a small office here with US employees to try and get some of their toy products into the US market and then challenge them with see if you can find something, maybe that would be for the US market as well. And that's that.
So when it comes to TMNT, you said you had some partners in on this and stuff. Why don't you explain who else was involved in this project for you, and briefly, how you came about? You said that you kept in contact, as we just saw, 16, 17 years with this person, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
you're finding these treasures within her collection. Why don't you kind of go into a little more detail there?
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly where our previous video cut off, but we basically continued to go through all the stuff she had, and it was an unbelievable volume of things. And then as far as like from a collectible rarity standpoint, unbelievable quality. So it was just this amazing collection of stuff. And then, so I think we went there 2 or 3 times very early on, at least twice, pretty early on. And at that point, I was like, man, there's so much here. Like, there's probably a book I could do. And at the time, I was thinking, I don't know how long the book could be, maybe 100, 150 pages. But I'm like, well, if I'm going to do it, I should really do some more research, right? I shouldn't just end one person, and I should really because she didn't have any story about it, right? Because she didn't work there. So I was like, well, I really need to get some story behind this as well. And let me go see if there are other things I might be able to find. So I think I said that we found a binder that had all the contractors in it, right? And so because Playmates was largely just a small marketing firm here, they outsourced all this stuff in the United States, all the way up to like going to tooling, because that was done with the parent company in Hong Kong. So all like the packaging artwork, the packaging design, the concept designs for the characters, the sculptings, all that stuff was done by contractors because they didn't have any employees. Unlike, Mattel and Hasbro had all that in-house. So this contractor list was quite important because this was basically their employee, what you would have if I got a phone directory from Kenner, that would be kind of the same thing, right? It's like, it's all the employees in the United States that worked on this. So I started there, and also I started just finding them, calling these people, got a hold of quite a few of them pretty readily. And then you always ask, like, who should I talk to? And then they started giving me the names of the people who were actually at Playmates that were important, like John Handy, like I mentioned, a guy named Mark Hatherall, who was very, very important, Carl Aronian, who is still there. He left for a little bit of time, but he's basically there. It was for the whole thing. So I started calling these guys and talking to them and getting the stories. And I would we make trips out to Los Angeles a couple times a year because that's where most of the people are, because that's where the U.S. Playmates is based, and go visit them. And sometimes it was more just about getting information and stories, and there were other people that had stuff that was on equal par with what we found at that first place. And so as I continued to go through that, I'm like, I got to the point where I felt like I could probably do justice to the entire 10-ish year run, from what is it, 87 to 96 or so. Right. Like I've got a little bit of something for every year. I was trying really hard to get something for every single subline, which I think I missed by maybe 3 or 4. Some of those later ones were really hard to find anything for.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I guess this is a big book, not a small book. And that whole process was about 3 years. So like 2017, when we made that first discovery, and through 2020, obviously the trip started slowing down just because of the whole what's going on in the world in 2020, the thing we shall not name. And so, but by that point in time, I had enough information. I'd started writing the book around 2019 and started working with Chance, who was a great designer. It came out exactly sort of like what I was envisioning in my head, like not specifically, but I'm like, it needs to be bright. It needs to feel like toys. It needs to feel turly. Like it needs to have all these elements. And he just sort of understood that. And then I think I put it out, I can't remember, sometime in 2020, I think is whenever, early 2021, somewhere in there where I started putting it out for sale. So.
And obviously, it started with the comics when it comes to the Turtles. And the comics had a darker image, of course. Obviously, the cartoon meant for children. But I feel like the first film was pretty dark as well, kind of, right off of the comics. What is your opinion on the films and comparing the darker part 1 to the 2 and 3, which were more like the cartoon?
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole thing is really interesting, that the idea that they found this comic book that didn't really seem like a kid's toy line thing, right? So the interesting story there is that at the time, like you said earlier, these cartoon/toy crossover things were like huge. Like everybody was trying to find the next one. And so that was actually the goal when they went out and started looking for them. And then I can't remember the guy's name, Mark, the guy that sort of pitched it to them, who was representing Eastman and Laird. I'll remember the name. Probably people listening to this podcast probably know it. But he pitched it to them. I think it was really kind of just the quirkiness of the title, honestly, that probably drew them into because I mean, if you read the comic book, no toy guy would be going, yeah, let's make toys from this comic book. So it had to be this initial thing of like, oh, this is an interesting idea that we can change from their initial concept into something that is kid friendly. And that's kind of where Carl Roney and John Handy really step into this and convert that. I mean, they were the ones, Playmates was the ones that came up with the colors for the bandanas, because which was not in the original comics, because they wanted to be able to distinguish them, a kid to distinguish them on the toy shelves. Look at it, oh, purple, that's the one I want Donatello. So, I mean, so many of the things about the sort of incarnation that got popular was created by the guys at Playmates versus Eastman and Laird. Obviously Eastman and Laird had the initial concept, which is a strong and weird and quirky concept. But then that got converted over. So as far as the movies go, it's like, by the time, what year did the first one come out? 91, I think.
I believe so. Yeah, 90 or 91.
Something like that. Yeah. So I mean, by that time it had been out for 4 years or so. So even some of the kids that were maybe 9, 10 are now 13, 14, so they had to be thinking that. I don't know this for sure. I'm just speculating, but they probably were thinking about that when the first movie was released. It's like, hey, this is not a 6-year-olds, because the 6-year-olds that started this are now 10 and the 10-year-olds are 14. It's like, we need to push it up a little bit.
And I've spoken to a couple of the actors from the films, and when they were given the concept and they heard Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it kind of seemed like across the board, a lot of them were just like, I mean, this isn't going to be anything, but okay, we'll go for it, and to see the success, like we spoke about earlier, this is one of the most successful franchises of all time. It's still going strong today. You know, do you think what do you think was that one thing that just kept it going, that made it larger than all of the other toy lines? Because
I
I feel
don't know.
like took off.
Yeah. I mean, you could make a really good argument that it's probably the number 2 most popular toy line behind Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you really could. Like, what other toy line would beat it? I mean, He-Man was popular for a few years, and it's sort of been in and out. But I mean, Turtles has pretty much had toys and comics and things since it started. There was only a few year breaks here and there where they were sort of letting it rest and rebooting it. I don't know, like, besides Star Wars and maybe like Marvel, superhero stuff, there isn't that many properties like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that it was so impactful in the way like Star Wars was, and when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, for the kids that were 6, 7, 8 years old, in the late 80s, early 90s, I just think it was so impactful and so huge, and it was like the only thing around almost for them. It just it almost is like has this sort of singular, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like when I said with Stars, like I didn't want anything else. I think it was the same for the TMNT kids. It's like, this is all I want. Like, this is it. There isn't like, I'm not dividing my attention between 5 different things I enjoy. No, I just want Ninja Turtles, right? It was huge in that kind of way. It was sort of like a singular interest point at that time. So I think that's probably a part of it. And then once you have that, and it's really easy property too to sort of play with, right? Because it's so weird and quirky, and it's like there's a lot of things you can do to sort of play with it. And Ninja Turtles in space, why not? Right. Like, anything.
That's the thing. There was such a great depth on, the variety of characters, and even the re-releases were, okay, we're going to put the Turtles out again as clowns, then we're going to put them out as spacemen, and then sports stars, and it always kind of gave you something fresh.
It kind of has that same thing they do with Batman, especially in the toys, where like Ice Batman and Lava Batman and Glider Wing Batman and Scuba Batman. Like, you can do a gazillion things with Batman, because you can't do that with like as much with some of the other superheroes. But Batman's all about his little gadgets. So you just go, okay, well, pick a theme and gadgetize him for that theme. You can kind of, it's the same thing with the Turtles. Like, pick a theme and just dress them up in that theme. And then I got this guy sitting right here on my desk, a little Wild West dude. So I mean, as an example. So
now, in recent years, did you get the opportunity to see the retros come out, the re-releases, and do you think, in your opinion, that hurt the value of the originals, or was it kind of just standalone for today's children?
Well, I think most of the re-release stuff was stuff that was so common in the original toys that the value really, I mean, most of the stuff they re-released, you could probably go buy an original one from the 80s and 90s for the same price as you could get it on the shelf. So it's like, they didn't, if they would have re-released like some of the super rare ones, I think that would have had an impact on the price of some of the old ones, but they didn't. They just released a bunch of common ones. So, which kind of makes sense, because the common ones, they're common because everybody had them and loved them. And so, well, wouldn't you want to release the most popular ones as a re-release? So that was kind of the idea behind it. But those are probably done now with the fact that I think Mattel has the license now.
Yeah.
So I doubt they'll do that with the line, but I don't know. They might.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to the project itself, you're working on the book. Obviously, it's a tedious thing over a 3-year journey, like you said, just to get it made. But what kept you going? What kept you motivated? Obviously, it's fun, but it's also got to be a little stressful to gather all, everything together. So.
Yeah, I'd say 2 things. First of all, when I was writing, I was still researching it. So there was definitely this pull of, what am I going to find? Hey, I'm planning another trip. What am I going to find this trip? That excitement of sort of discovery and treasure hunting. And the other thing was just my partners, Matt and Gary and Steven, and then my wife actually went with us a lot on some of those LA trips. And so just having them all around and there is really, it's like I not only get to go do this, I get to also hang out with some of my best friends. So,
and the knowledge that you've picked up, throughout the course of this project for you, what would you say, in your opinion, are the three rarest pieces of the toy series, whether it be a vehicle or a figure or whatever it may be?
Well, I'm going to assume here we're going to talk production toys, because once you get into prototypes, it's all out the window because there's hundreds of things that have one of, right? Yeah. So well, and it also depends on, the answer depends on if you're going deep into like variants, like one of the, the black belt storage shell is crazy rare, but the regular storage shell isn't. So to some collectors that they love that kind of thing. Other collectors would be like, the storage shell turtle's not rare. Okay, maybe his accessory is rare. But as far as rarest, I know the coil force ones are really tough to find. I know that the turtle and the turtle mini mutants, they look like figures about this big that open up and have the mini ones inside. Yeah. Getting those things complete is almost impossible loose because they have so many little tiny itty bitty parts. Some of them are even hard to find in a package. They re-released some of those too with like gold plating on them. And those are insanely hard to find. I'm not giving you an exact list because I'm not really sure if some of these. It's like some of these are so rare. I hardly ever have even seen them. So it's like, how do I even rank them 1 to 10? Right? I don't know.
Sure.
Everybody says Scratch is super rare, but you can go on eBay right now and find 5 of them to buy. To me, that's not rare. Is it relatively rare in the line compared to the other ones? Yes. Is it rare in the global sense of rarity? Like, I will only see one available every 5 years? No, it's not. So, so there's that. But like I said, some of those coil force ones, I just never see those. The stretch turtles, hardly ever see those. Oh, there's one called, it was like a plush sort of, what is it called? My Buddy or something like that. Not my Ninja Pal. I think it was something like that.
Yeah,
it was like a plush. They made 4 of them there, maybe that big.
Yep.
I've only ever seen one set of those in boxes, and it was one I found with one of the Playmates employees who had them as samples. It's like,
wow,
insanely hard to find. That's not really an action figure, but still insanely hard to find. So I don't know. That's sort of a very broad swath of things that I think are on the rarity scale. So, and then you go into prototypes, it's completely different, right? Like a lot of one-offs. Yeah,
absolutely. And you may or may not have some insight on it, but taking a common character when it comes to the figures, like Ray Fillet, for instance, why do you think a common character like that has so many different variants, so many different repaints? There's like 4 or 5 different versions of that character. That one has a particularly interesting answer that doesn't apply to most figures, and that's because they originally did that one with a color changing paint. So the idea was you drop him into a cup of hot water, and he would go, I think, from like a fuchsia pinkish color to yellow. And I don't know if they eventually decided to get rid of that, and I don't know if that was because of cost reasons or quality reasons, maybe a little of both. And so they went to just a straight painted or molded color without that special paint on it. So that was the big change with that figure. But, you look at a lot of the figures, and so I didn't mention this, but I have actually a background in the toy industry. I was an engineer and did some work for Little Tykes and Fisher-Price back in the early parts of my career. So I do understand, and that's another reason that I thought I would be a good person to do this book, because I could explain the whole processes of what was going on with all the toys, maybe better than someone who didn't have that experience. But my point here is that a lot of the things that collectors call variants, I look at it as an engineer understanding the process and how toys are made. A lot of it is typical
just variants at the factories. They got a batch of blue paint, and then next month the batch of blue paint was a little purplish, and nobody cared, or they got it approved, and now you have one that, oh, the blue one and the purplish one, or that black belt that I was talking about. I mean, that's just a different color in the mold. It could be literally they just ran out of, I think the original was deep purple, maybe. They ran out of that color pigment that day, and they had to run 1,000 units, and they're just called up Playmate and said, hey, can we just do these in black? Sure, just run them. We just need them.
So it's not always intentional.
Right. So that's the kind of thing you have to think about. So I look at variants as sort of in two flavors. There are ones where the company itself made an intentional change for some reason. The Ray Fillet paint is a good example of that. They decided, that wasn't just like, oh, we just ran out of paint, run without paint today. That was an intentional change somebody made because for whatever reason, probably cost. And so that's a legit variant. You see something where like the change of the April head, right, from the earlier ones, like that was an intentional change, right? That wasn't an accident. But then you look at some of these like just minor paint colors or things like that, and I'm going, that's just a factory variation. It's not something that a designer or an engineer said, we're changing this because we want the product to be different, right? It intentionally different. So I guess one of them would be like, in the absence of something going wrong, you never would have saw that variant. But something went a little wrong. They couldn't get the paint, they couldn't get the plastic, and so they made a minor tweak just to keep things moving. Versus the other one is like, we're going to resculpt the April head. Like that's intentional, right? Versus unintentional. So it's kind of funny to me that like even the Star Wars realm, a lot of collectors just get really hung up on these little things. And I'm not downplaying that. Like a lot of people just like to have some kind of unique niche that they're in, and that's good. If they enjoy it, they enjoy it. So I'm not trying to like, talk bad about variation collectors, but it is kind of funny to me going, that's just like, you could look forever and keep finding those, right. Especially on a big line like Turtles or Star Wars, because those things just happen. Like you will never find the end of it. Whereas intentional ones, you will, there are only so many, and you can find what they are and sort of have one of each. But the little variation things like that, you could collect forever and never find them all.
The one that I always found intriguing, my favorite character was probably, for the toy line, was probably Super Shredder as a kid growing up. And, there appears to be some variants of the Super Shredder out there. I've got the original, but there are, some with purple shoulder pads or, whatever it may be. Do you think that kind of falls in the same category? Just what they had?
The big one there is the one that went with the Chef Boyardee promotion, right? They released one.
The mail away there.
I think it was, mail away or something. And that one's like, it's black rather than purple. So that one's obviously intentional. Yeah. That would be probably, they wanted to do a promotion, Chef Boyardee that is, and they wanted a figure, but they wanted it to be unique, but they didn't want to pay for a new sculpting or something like that. Right. So what they did is, we'll change the color of this one for you. So to me, that is absolutely a very, bumping my monitor, very intentional variation.
So when it comes to, this woman finding all of these unbelievable pieces, or having all of these pieces, you found them. What's the end game for those? The pieces themselves, is she going to put them up for auction? Is she going to hang on to them?
Yeah, well, those I was contacted her with intention that I would like to look through whatever she had and make her offers, and she was looking, like I said, for help her kid with going off to college and the bills there. So we were able to purchase
good,
pretty much her entire collection over a couple of years. Yeah. Excellent. Sometimes it's like that, and sometimes people are like, no, I don't want to sell it, and that's fine. Like sometimes and there have been times I just took my camera in, right, and got pictures of stuff. Yeah. And they didn't want to let anything go. And sometimes it's in the middle, like, I'll sell these things, but these I want to keep. I kind of like them. So it's all over the map as far as that goes. But I'm a collector too. So I'm not. I did this. It started out for my collecting. The book was sort of secondary to that. It wasn't the other way around. It wasn't like I'm writing a book and finding stuff and buying it and. I'm a collector too, but we always got there were four of us, so we split stuff up pretty well. But there were always extra stuff, and we would sell some things on, help pay a little bit for the stuff we kept. You know, it was a lot of work. I mean, there were days I would get Saturday mornings. At the time, my wife was in banking, so she generally worked Saturday mornings. And I would get up and I would get on the phone and start cold calling for 3 hours, once a week. And it's a lot of work. And after that, every 100 people you call, you might find the right person. I.e., I'm looking for Joe Smith, and I have to call 50 Joe Smiths till I hit the right Joe Smith.
Right.
And then out of that 100, if I got one that's the right person to talk to, 50% of the time, maybe they'd have something, and then 50% of that time, maybe they'd be willing to sell something. So it's even to get the stuff is a lot of work. Yeah.
Well, the reason I ask, it's great to see that those pieces went into the hands of somebody who appreciates it rather than be in storage for another 30 years. You know what I mean? So
yeah, or worse, being thrown out. I've heard stories of stuff like that. Where collections just get tossed, or get the person dies and their family inherits it and doesn't know what it is, and they just think it's toys. It's just normal. Oh, they look on eBay. Oh, this is $5, but they don't realize it's not $5. It's something different and special. It just happens to look like that, and things get pitched. But yeah, fortunately for turtles, there was a couple pack rats.
Yes.
That worked on the lines. Serious pack rats. That's an excellent thing for preserving the history.
So RAD Plastic, how did you come up with the name? Kind of walk us through that process.
Actually, I literally posted it out. I'm on one of the forums. I'm looking for a name, and one of my friends said, "Here's one," and I'm like, "Okay, we're done. That's it." It was instant. I knew it.
Wow.
It was just there was no debate. Other people were throwing out different things, and I was like, yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I was waiting for the one that hit me that was so obvious I could not possibly imagine it be named anything else. And that was it. So, yeah, I did not come up with it myself.
And tell us about the book, for fans that haven't picked up a copy yet, what they can expect, what the book is all about, and where they can get it.
Yes, there's kind of 3 sections, two smaller sections at the front and large section at the back. The first section is a little bit just sort of the history of how the line came about. Mark Friedman, that's the name. I knew I'd remember it. So from Mark Friedman pitching it to Playmates up through basically some of the early design concepts and getting to that sort of first wave of toys. So that story. That's more of the story section behind how it came to be. The second section goes deep into how toys are actually made, or I would say were made back then. A lot of the stuff's the same today, but some things have changed. And I talk a lot about that because in the back 3/4 of the book, you basically see all this different stuff from all these different stages. And so I was like, the reader's going to have to understand what it is they're looking at, or this won't be very interesting, right? I wasn't going to write a book that was just, here's a picture of all the toys and their packaging, out of their packaging. Those are very valuable books, like a guide, but that's just not of any interest for me to do. That's not my thing. And actually, Pixel Dan is putting out that book. So I ordered my copy. I haven't got it yet. So I'm not sure when exactly it comes out, but I ordered it a little bit ago. So it's got to be coming out soon. So after we get through that, explaining the whole process from sketch all the way through to shelf, right? I talk about the sculpting and the packaging and the all the art that goes in, everything, every step along the way. Then we get to the section that's basically year by year. So we go from 87 all the way through to 96, and even sort of what might have been past 96, because I found a few things that were sort of planned for the following year and got canceled. So I go through every year. I try to have at least something from every subset line, like the Western Turtles or the Monster Turtles or whatever. And a lot of them I have example of every figure, but it's not 100% every single figure in the entire line. That's not the intent. If you want to just a collector's guide, that's not this book. This is more history and art. I call it a history and art book. So you'll get to see all the artistry behind the toys, from sculptings to original paintings to concept sketches for the packaging, things that were never made, from character sketches that they just didn't pick, to packaging designs that were discarded, to actual figures that made it almost through production and were never released. So all that kind of thing is in there.
And within where can fans purchase this book?
RADPlastic.com. So.
Excellent. And within the toy industry, what would you say is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
As far as collecting, you mean?
Yeah.
Quality, not quantity.
Okay.
That's my biggest thing that people ask me. And I've been collecting toy stuff for 25 years now, or maybe more. I don't even want to count. But yeah, I think way too many people get hung up with just buying stuff, and they just end up with walls of stuff. And so my challenge was always to people that would say, I'd go over their house or their collection and come look at mine, and they'd be like, oh, this stuff's too expensive. And I'm like, it's not, because just like you have 20 things, and instead I took that same amount of money and spent it on one thing. It's not that you can't afford it. Like, that's in your head. You're spending $20 20 times. Well, that's a $400 item if you didn't spend $20 20 times, right? So a lot of people have this misconception of things being too expensive. Sometimes it is, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's just prioritizing and staying focused and disciplined, right? And so the one thing I like to challenge people with is I'm like, go get something, save up for a while and get something that you feel is kind of like right at the edge of your ability to go do, right? And then put that in your collection, whatever it is. Let's say a loose scratch or something, or a carded scratch if that's your level, whatever that is. Even go sell some things to go get this. And then just when you go in your collection and you're walking around and you're looking at things, notice what you gravitate to. Are you gravitating to the 20 things over here on the shelf? Or are you gravitating to that one $400 thing? And I don't know what the answer is. Some people gravitate to the 20 things because they like dioramas, right? For example. And so that really gets them going. Other people, I find like really what they find out is that, oh, now that I've got this thing that is really amazing in quality, rarity, whatever, and not just, 300 things on a shelf, that's the thing I really gravitate to. I'm like, well, now you know what you really like to collect then. So, get rid of the 300 things and go find 4 things that are awesome. So, and I'm not saying that's everybody's way of collecting, but what I am saying is that I think a lot of people don't try it. They just sort of rule that out. It's too expensive. And then when they try it, they're like, oh my gosh, I like this more. Like I'm more interested in this thing I got than those 30 things. And it just takes doing it to figure out where you're really at.
And as a longtime collector yourself, what would you say if you had to pick one moment? What would that number one memory be for you throughout your entire process?
For turtles, or you want to go broader into everything?
Yeah, just everything, just collecting in general.
Well, I'll give you both. For turtles, it was that first time we were in that basement, and so Matt had gone over into this one corner, like across the basement, and we had this one area that we sort of cleared out some things. We were using it to unpack boxes and put stuff out and see what was in them, and then we go, okay, we know what this is. Pack it up. That's a box we want to consider taking, or no, that's plastic ponies. Put it back against the wall. And so me and Gary were in this area, a clear area, and Matt had gone over this other corner. He's like, I'm gonna go look over here because it was kind of buried, and he had like this little narrow thing he had to go through to get back there. And so me and Gary sitting there, and Matt goes, hey, Gary, come over here, get this bin. And Gary said, okay. So he goes away a minute or two. He comes back. He's carrying this huge box. And I said, what's in there? He says, painted hard copies. I'm like, the whole thing? He's like, the whole thing. That was like the first, like we had found a couple little things here and there, but that was the point where like, oh my God, I can't believe what's here. Cause it was there must've been 30 or 40 of them in there. Wow. And I'm like, I can't believe you're telling me the truth right now. So that was probably the best, the best moment in my turtles. But let me tell you the best moment overall. So back in, it must have been 2000 or 1999 or so, I went down to Cincinnati very regularly to basically do the same thing with the Kenner people. And sometimes my wife would go with me. And one time we went to this guy. He was an outside contractor, and he just ended up with a lot of stuff because they would send stuff over to him to do whatever part of the process he needed to do, and then they didn't need it back. It was just like, we need your end thing that you're producing, that you're making for us, but the stuff we sent you to create that, we don't need it. Just throw it out where we kept it all. Sure. And so he had some artwork. He brought a box, and it was, I don't know, and there was just various paperwork, cardboard, artwork type stuff in there. And so we're looking through the art, and I pull out this one piece. And it was only about this big. And if you know the Kenner line, all the die-cast vehicles, at one point they made these like backdrops that were like 3 panels, and you'd fold them, and it would kind of sit like this. And like for the Y-wing, it looked like, it might look like a hangar or something, or just a space scene, and whatever. So I pulled out a panel that was a concept painting for one of those, but it wasn't like, they were 3 panels wide, and this was just like almost like half of it, sort of, because I knew what the thing looked like. I'm like, this isn't the whole thing, but half of it's here. And I looked down in the corner of this thing, and it's signed by the artist T. Beaumont, and my jaw hit the floor, because Tom Beaumont is my wife's uncle.
Oh my gosh.
He had worked at Kenner for 2 or 3 years. And she was with me when we found it. I mean, what are the crazy odds that he works at Kenner, that she ends up marrying a guy who collects toy stuff, but not only collects toy stuff, but this very niche thing of going and finding employees. Right. And then we happened to find this guy. He happened to keep the painting, and I happened to be there, and she happens to be with me when I pull the thing out. I mean, it's one of those things, like, the coincidences that have to stack up for that moment to happen are insane. Yeah. Right. But here we are sitting in Cincinnati holding a piece of her uncle's original artwork with his thing. And the other thing, he so like I said, it was 2 panels. Well, if the panel with his signature had been lost, we wouldn't have found it. Yeah. And then why did he even sign it? Those things usually weren't signed, but he did. He signed it. So, that was just, that story still is, that's my best collecting story ever. I mean, to have that happen.
It's amazing.
I still have that piece. Obviously, it's never going anywhere.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, what advice do you have for somebody who's maybe looking to release a book on something, or, throwing their feather in the hat? What advice do you have for that individual?
Do digital. So I get that. I really like. I don't regret that I did the hardcover book, and hardcover books are awesome. So that was half jesting, but like, also a hardcover book is a lot more work. You have to, packing and shipping and bubble wrap, and oh my God, it's a pain. So, but if you really wanted to do, one that's not digital, then definitely find a great designer. I think that's what sets the really nice, great books apart from the ones that are, while they may have great content, just seem like they're, a little amateur-ish, Don't try to do it yourself unless you are a designer. And find somebody that's used to, graphic design, book design, pamphlets, something like that, not like, industrial designer that's doing, sketches of products or something, right? You need to find somebody that really understands designs that end up on paper, that are meant to be viewed by people. So that'd be my biggest piece of advice. And then just other than that, just like, you just got to put in the work. It's a really easy thing to say you want to start, but it's a really hard thing to finish. So just be dedicated, I guess. If you're going to start it, just know that you're never going to give up, and you're going to finish it, and be that dedicated. And if you think there's any question in your mind you're not that dedicated, just don't start, because you'll just end up wasting a bunch of time that you could spend doing something more fun.
And speaking of, in closing, from start to finish, what would you say was the greatest challenge for you during this project? And then on the flip side of that, the most rewarding part of it?
Oh, biggest challenge. I don't know. I mean, there wasn't any one thing that sticks. I think there were challenges along the way, all the way. I mean, like I had a big challenge figuring out what the cover was going to be. We beat that around for a month before Chance came up with the concept for the van, which is what's on there, which again was like, I was looking for the one that I couldn't imagine it being anything else. And he came up with that van, like, let's put the van on the front and the back of the van on the back. And I'm like, done. That's it. Like, it can't be anything else. Right. And I'd already decided at that point that I wanted the book to be square, not your typical, whatever, 3-to-1 ratio or whatever books are. Your typical 8.5 by 11. I wanted it square because I wanted a lot of width, to put the toys and not have it all feel like crowded. So I already knew I was doing a book that was going to be like 10 inches by 10 inches. So the fact that the van is kind of square on the front, like that wouldn't have worked in a tall book, a normal size. Right. So, but probably just, I don't know, it's the challenge is always, just deciding what is in and what's not in was probably the biggest thing. It doesn't sound like a challenge, but like with the amount of material I had, I couldn't put everything in and going, what do I want on this page? What do I want on this page? What do I want to do for this section? Do I put, oh man, I really like that sketch, but I got this sketch over. I got 4 sketches I love like for that. I can't put them all in because the book would be 800 pages. So just sort of mixing the things that you just like, I don't want that to not be in there, but I can't, I don't have room. And, I said it pretty early, it was going to be 400 pages. I didn't want to do more than that. So that was probably the hardest part, is just deciding what was in and what was out. So, and the most rewarding was 100% the people. I mean, I've made some really great friends, not just Matt and Scott, Stephen and Gary, but like some of the Playmates people I really got to know very well. A couple of them I call on a regular basis and just chit chat about life, right? I mean, some of these people got to be really great friends. Wow. So that's definitely the most rewarding part, is just the people. And my favorite section of the whole book is like the last 4 pages. If you turn to the back, you'll see like a behind the scenes section. So everybody we met, I made sure that we took a picture of one of us with that person. And that one too, I could not put every picture in, which killed me, right? I want a picture of every single person I met here. Like, nope, it's 4 pages. I got to pick and decide who I can put in, who I can't. So I love that section, because that section for me is just all the memories of all the people we met and the day we were there, and so, that really has a deep meaning to me, those last 4 pages. And I would think that people like them, and they're fun kind of for them too, just to see some of the stuff. Like there's one with Gary with like a headlight on his head that was down in that basement looking into the dark. There's one with me peeking out of a little attic space, some fun things in there that are not just, me standing next to a person, but I try to capture some of the sort of adventure of the whole process on those pages. So they're pretty fun.
Well, for all the viewers that are tuning in, I certainly encourage you guys and girls to pick it up. RAD Plastic, get your copy today. It's it caught my eye immediately. The van concept, like you said, that's what did it for me. And then when I realized what it was, I said, I have to have this. And, you always wonder, is the quality going to be good? You see stuff online, and it came in and it was just top notch, top of the line and heavy duty. And it's one of those coffee table books that people are going to talk about, people are going to notice, it's going to be a conversation point. And just like you said, the quality and the colors, throughout the entire book, the pages, everything is fantastic. And even if you're not a Turtle fan, I think you'd still appreciate the book for just the behind the scenes look at, toys in general, like unreleased and prototypes and stuff like we spoke about today. It's just fascinating, really, from start to finish. So RAD Plastic, pick up your copy today. Chris, thank you so much for being here to talk about it.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
For Chris Fawcett, I'm Joseph Bruen, and this has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave your comments. Love to hear from you, the fans, and we will see you all next time.